Welcome to Startup Confidential, what industry insiders will never tell you that you need to know if you're building a consumer brand. With your host, best-selling author of Ramping Your Brand, Dr. James Richardson. Let's do this.
Welcome to episode 154. I want to chat about a trend that some of my clients have been forging ahead with, while the classically trained marketers look down past the steeply tilted noses at it. The trend is this: building a fast twitch, always-on content studio of creators and algorithm wizards inside your high-growth brand, even if it's a purely retail affair. Now, just as cash flow screams no luxuries, smart founders in the 2020s are ignoring that and transforming boring commodities into media-enhanced entertainment brands that happen to sell products that work. Liquid Death deployed a high-energy content studio before they shipped any product to their pre-order consumers in 2019. This kind of original commitment to highly entertaining content is a rare thing in my experience for emerging CPG brands that are destined for retail, especially in CPG, and not the only way to tap into the trend. Look, when the founder is a former creative director and his wife is a videographer and illustrator, you kind of have a cheap studio from the start, don't you? Yeah. You don't need this. You don't need this advantage to make use of the content studio trend. But let me step back just a bit first. An embedded content studio is really just a new trend inside a 100-year-old media class known as owned media. What is owned media? It is content fully created and distributed by the brand owner with no intermediary human gatekeeper. Now, before the internet, owned media for consumer brands was essentially direct mail. And most of it was and still is non-creative discount offers spam that we all recycle instantly. But not all of it. I mean, Bombas, a few years ago, Bombas generated powerful memorability with a direct mail postcard illustrating their crazy one-to-one donation commitment for socks and the running total of 25 million donated socks to date. I mean, that's a lot of socks. That's a lot more impressive a declaration than 1% for the planet. Still, in the pre-internet age, it was really retail brands that had the most direct mail fun with their mail order catalogs, right? I mean, that's pretty cool. The internet created websites and blogs as new forms of owned media for brands of all kinds. But it took time for many brands to get really creative with these tools. So the real explosion in owned media actually came with organic posts and social media platforms and YouTube, the personal broadcasting service no company realized that they needed until they did. Okay. The magic of owned media is not that it's inexpensive. Could be, might not be. The magic is in the control and the ability to crank out content extremely fast. In a world of fast-moving internet memes, this is critical if you want your brand to appear cool and with it in modern youth culture. I mean, you have hours to get on digital trends, not days or weeks. And this is where the content studio slides in to revolutionize how brands communicate. The idea of a studio also can absorb your current email marketing or blogging, right? Because it's a much more grandiose investment of time and energy when you set it up right. Before the smartphone-enabled mediaverse and the sprawl of social media networks, owned media was a super limited thing, like I just mentioned. And it worked best for D2C brands because they had customer email lists, right? Most brands, so their e-newsletter should be awesome. That's how you generate the repeat purchase. Most brands essentially had to work with external agencies, if they weren't D2C, to create and design and execute virtually anything aimed at the end consumer. They didn't have that own media pipe. Well, You can't reach tens of millions of people with anything but a very expensive direct mail campaign, right? So a retailer like LL Bean is going to put the millions into their catalog. Duh. But you're probably not if you're just selling sauce at Whole Foods. Your website and blog, even in the 2000s, had no way to scale its audiences other than just years of freaking time and waiting. If you wanted to move fast back then, you still had to hire an agency, even with a nice website and an e-newsletter. Except that agencies, by today's standards of marketing speed, are such incredibly slow leviathans. I mean, the world is crazy, isn't it? Modern digital platforms are essentially ungatekeeped by slow human agents. Agency staff. This allows extremely rapid content distribution as long as you can learn the art of working each platform's algorithm through trial and error and create your own content. You got to be creating the content inside the company to move this fast. Because you may have to test 100 pieces of content 1,000 different ways to tickle the algorithm. There's no outside vendor, there's no Upwork person who's going to contract for that kind of insanity. There's just no way. And you wouldn't want to pay them what they're going to charge. So despite this revolution in building digital brand awareness, the instinct of classically trained marketers has always been and is still to outsource all of the creation and execution to the pros, and then to sit back and play the role of editor-in-chief. And so this is why most marketers still gravitate toward influencers as the modern digital brand awareness building technique. Deep down, they really do feel that they should be paying somebody else to do their marketing for them. They're not the communicator. I'm not knocking smart influencers or affiliate relationships. I'm not. They have value. I'm just pointing out that they distract many small teams with a classical marketing brain from the possibility of a content studio approach to accelerating awareness and inserting their brand into popular culture the way that younger millennials and Gen Z want you to behave. Sadly, most classically trained marketers actually do 4 things, and only these. A, they set a budget. B, author a creative brief. We all should be doing that. C, hire agencies for everything. And D, edit the agency's output. It's mostly an editorial and political position, and lots of budget fighting. This does not in any way attract highly creative, risk-taking people at all. Trust me. When you see a title on LinkedIn like brand director, don't think Martin Scorsese or Sofia Coppola. Most of these folks are administrators. You wouldn't want to read a short story they wrote. Now, sometimes they even insert focus group and ad reel research as a form of political insurance for themselves. That further delays execution. For fuck's sake. In turn, this risk-averse arms-length staff built up an incredibly slow, highly political communications process and a process of content creation, that inside an agency has the ever-present risk of telephone, leading to drift from the creative brief that you gave the agency. In other words, the content was always outsourced traditionally with a brief, and often still is. The brand team then frets and micromanages the agency in a stupid tug-of-war that is legendary at large companies, and it's now spreading into smaller companies and even into my clients' companies. Look, there's no way that you can get this kind of rubber band floppy-ass process to move quickly or to move at scale like the modern internet. It may rapidly produce scale, yeah, absolutely, for tons of money after 18 months of planning. That doesn't help a high-growth company or any kind of company that wants to be digitally relevant. Now, imagine a time-starved early-stage company with a marketing team of 3 people, okay? They have no time to micromanage an agency or a set of agencies because they spend most of their time executing trade marketing graphics for sales teams. They have more incentive to offload A to Z to some miraculous promotional magic shop than anybody, and to believe such a stupid thing exists, and it doesn't exist. Not for anything approaching a reasonable price, and it still won't operate as fast as an internal content studio, which is actually much cheaper than hiring the agency. The sales and ops bias of most early-stage consumer brands, growing fairly slowly on the back of distribution gains primarily, It doesn't lend itself to the kind of high energy culture that chases entertainment-driven content impressions and digital marketing campaigns built and launched from inside the company. So when an early stage company start looking for help accelerating their business, 90% or more still veer towards outsourcing creation and distribution of content. Often there is no understanding of what content creation is best to outsource and why. So everything gets turned into an agency bid. I mean, almost like the brand is Oreo or something, and it's not. This is literally the most expensive and tactically foolish thing you could do as a marketing team in a high growth company in the early or mid stage. And yet a bunch of you listening to this are going to go ahead and do it anyways. Urgh! A content studio is about feeding large volumes of on-brand content with tight thematic control onto dozens of digital platforms at the speed of the modern meme or news headline. It is not necessarily about filming 60-second TV ads. Yet, as Dr. Squatch did for their Super Bowl ad a few years back, you can take your own backyard film done for YouTube and push it onto larger screens once you have the budget to do that. The reason you want a content studio is the sheer volume of material that you need to create to have a entertainment-driven brand, a media-driven brand, is going to overwhelm a digital marketing agency, which is really just an advertising agency. And in turn, they're going to charge you ridiculous markups to generate that kind of volume. They're probably never going to take the contract because what you'd be asking for quantitatively is insane. More importantly, there's no way an agency would fast twitch for a $50 million brand when they have $2 billion brands contracting that requirement into their contracts, right? You're too small. And if you can find some crazy one-off tiny agency willing to put that kind of energy in, you're going to be their only client and they'll be out of business when you get rid of them. But you're not going to find anyone who's going to take you as their only client so they can work 100 hours a week. They might as well become your employee. In fact, if you like them that much, hire them. So this concludes my take on what a content studio is and why it matters today for high growth brands. But in the next episode, I do want to take a serious dive into some examples and help you think through whether this is actually the right move for your brand, because it doesn't work for everyone and for every founder. If you like this content, please hit the subscribe button on the bottom right of the video frame to be the first to see new episodes and see all my other founder tip content. Yay! Be safe out there in Founderland.
Thanks for listening. Remember, Dr. Richardson has loads of resources for founders at premiumgrowthsolutions.com.